Let's take a closer look at the news now from Essex, Suffolk and Norfolk. And an RAF pilot has been describing the moment his navigator plunged to his death during a flight over Norfolk. Mark Williams told an inquest that the incident happened when he flew the jet upside down.
Mark Williams, seen here on the left, joined the RAF in 1978 and started flying Tornadoes in 1984. Along with navigator Mike Harland, he worked for BAE Systems, which maintains the RAF's Tornado fleet. In November 2007, they took off from RAF Marham in Norfolk to test a Tornado jet, which had been through maintenance work. Mike Harland fell to his death halfway through. The jury heard that they were at 5,000 feet when the plane banked sharply and was almost upside down. Mark Williams said he heard an explosion like a firework. The cockpit filled with mist. When he looked for Mike Harland, he wasn't there. Yesterday, the jury heard from an accident investigator who focused on the latch which fixed the ejector seat to the inside of the cockpit. He believed it hadn't been engaged properly, causing Mike Harland's seat to fall out with gravity. The inquest continues tomorrow. The jury are likely to hear from additional witnesses. Dawn Gerber, BBC Look East, Norwich.
A soldier based in Essex has been killed while clearing bombs in Afghanistan. He was part of 33 Engineer Regiment from Wimbish Barracks. The MOD has said he was killed in an explosion in Helmand Province. His family has asked that his name is not released immediately. Two men convicted of the notorious Rettendon drugs murders in Essex are unlikely to be allowed a second appeal. Michael Steele and Jack Womes were jailed for life in 1998 for killing 3 drug dealers in a Range Rover. The Criminal Cases Review Commission says it's unlikely to refer it to the Court of Appeal. The leader of Basildon Council says the government will have to help pay to evict travellers from an illegal site in Essex. Moving families from illegal pitches at Dale Farm near Basildon is expected to cost millions.
A recent eviction of travellers from illegally built pitches in Essex. The bailiffs are getting ever closer to Dale Farm near Basildon, thought to be the largest illegal travellers site in Europe. But now a council leader and a local MP say the government will have to help pay the Dale Farm eviction bill. A joint statement said, "This site clearance is of such a scale that both Basildon Council and Essex Police need government funding in order to enforce the law. We now await a response." But travellers' supporters wonder whether the government will have the cash.
I can't see Theresa May at the Home Office wanting to suddenly shell out a lot of money on a totally negative operation, which is only going to leave people on the roadside looking for other places to go with their caravans.
Meanwhile, a county court action by Dale Farm travellers continues. They say the council should move them to new caravan pitches, not council flats. Gareth George, BBC Look East.
Football now, and both our championship sides were in action last night. 6 goals scored, but no points to show for it. This report on a bad night for Ipswich and Norwich is from Kate Riley.
The Norwich boss predicted this could be a banana skin. The Canaries started the night in third, visitors Crystal Palace struggling second from bottom. The hosts started brightly, Simeon Jackson with this effort off the bar. And then it wasn't long until Grant Holt scored from close range. Come the second half, Palace mounted a royal comeback. First, Julian Bennett headed in from 6 yards. Then former Ipswich product Owen Garvin had a point to prove, setting up Anthony Gardner for the winner. Meanwhile, it was a bad night for Roy Keane and his Ipswich side away to Watford. Just before the break, the travelling faithful from Suffolk was stunned into silence. The hosts sinking 2 quick goals, the first from Stephen McGinn. Then 2 minutes later, Marvin Sordell doubled the lead. King called it a silly 5 minutes. Town tried to recover and dominated after the break. David Norris giving Town a lifeline, this header coming from 20 yards out. And youngster Ronan Murray's effort came close to salvaging a point, but was offside. The Blues now slip out of the playoff places into 8th. Kate Riley, BBC Look East.
8 members of the same family are working at Colchester General Hospital. Martin Rayner is a technician, but his wife, 3 of their children, his sister, daughter-in-law and son's partner also work on the side. He says they see more of each other now at work than they do at home. Martin's mother and mother-in-law also worked for the NHS in Colchester. Well, that's it. Let's go back to Cambourne in Cambridgeshire and catch up the latest with Susie.
Welcome back to Cambourne, where tonight we're looking at the impact of the government's spending review on our region. In a moment, the verdict of our panel of guests. Before that, today's announcements mean there are lots of worries about jobs and future budgets. But it's not all doom and gloom. Some companies are hoping to pick up new business as the public sector cuts back. This report is from our business correspondent, Richard Bond.
Keeping our highways moving. It's the responsibility of county councils. But here in Northamptonshire, it's a job carried out by the private sector. May Gurney does everything from widening footpaths to looking after street lighting. The Norwich firm does the same for Essex and Norfolk. Outsourcing, where a contractor carries out a service for a council, is a growing business.
I don't think we're cashing in at all. I think what we're trying to do is work together with local authorities, with the workforce that we inherit, and to deliver the best service possible. We have grown by 50% in the last 5 years, principally through outsourced services, and I expect that to continue over the next 5 years, hopefully doubling in size.
There's no getting away from the fact that spending cuts mean job losses, but it's also true that this is a time of great opportunity for private firms to pick up major contracts, helping councils to provide services.
Just look at Suffolk. The county council wants to outsource the bulk of its services. This small business software firm near Haverhill is certainly in the market.
Well, potentially it's a massive opportunity for small and medium-sized companies. We obviously are local employers, so we will bring money back into the community if we are given the work to do. We just need to make sure we have access to the tendering process and it isn't just restricted to larger companies.
The public sector's need for advice about how to reform itself is bringing work to consultancy firms.
There are some organisations in the public sector who've actually come from a position where they've had spending stimulus in the last couple of years, so they've been asked to effectively spend more to suddenly having to drastically cut spending. And that's a big, big change, I think.
Outsourcing isn't risk-free. 300 workers in Norwich lost their jobs last month when Connaught went bust. It looked after the city's housing stock. But with councils running out of money to keep doing things the old way, outsourcing is set to grow. Richard Bond, BBC Look East.
Well, let's talk to our panel of guests. Councillor Tricia Turner, Conservative leader of Central Bedfordshire Council, Alex Plant, Chief Executive of the not-for-profit organisation Cambridgeshire Horizons, and Anne Glover from the union Unison. Councillor Turner, if I can talk to you first of all, as we've heard, major cuts for councils. Do you think this is going to be bearable? Are we all going to notice, us council taxpayers, the difference?
Well, I have to say, as a brand new council, only 18 months old, this is the sort of thing we've been doing from day one. We knew that we wanted to drive efficiencies and we wanted to make savings, and we took out 10 million from our base budget in the very first year. 12 million we're set to save this year, and of course, looking ahead, we've got another 36 plus million to take out over the next 4 years. And we have had to be very focused on our priorities in terms of rigorous financial management and looking after the truly vulnerable in our society. It's making priorities. The public purse is very light just now, and we all have to make the savings in order to deliver the essential services.
One of the areas which there are going to be a lot of savings is housing, and that's obviously something close to your heart at Cambridgeshire Horizons, Alex Plant. How worried are you about that?
I must admit, I am quite worried. I mean, clearly we have an extreme shortage of particularly affordable housing in Cambridgeshire. And so the plans for new housing that we've been developing over many years are really trying to address that. But the cuts in the social housing budget are of a particular concern, as indeed are some of the other cuts in the infrastructure budget. But I do think we have to try and be positive and look at ways in which we can still address that need, because people need somewhere to live and our businesses need those homes so they can recruit the talent they need to grow. Because if Cambridge and the area around it doesn't grow, then the country as a whole really is in trouble.
Anne Glover, I doubt you're feeling too positive tonight. A big, big hit for public sector workers, isn't it?
Yeah, around approximately 500,000, so 500,000, and they're predicting that around 500,000 will also go in the private sector. So in one hit, that's an extra 1 million unemployed.
So what about the local authority? Because obviously I know you're from Suffolk, you're very worried about what's going on at Suffolk County Council, where they're planning to outsource a lot of services. Do you think we're going to see this across the board? Because Suffolk's been held up by the government today as an example.
Yeah, from one ill-conceived, ill-thought-out plan to another. Unfortunately, it's a pity that the government are saying that that's, you know, an example of good practice, where actually Suffolk themselves now seem to be taking a backward step from that so-called grand plan.
Tricia Turner, I know that you don't want to become a virtual council and outsource all your services, but are you looking forward to the ring fencing being removed and you can actually move your money around to places where you need it more?
Yes, I am, because of course that's what we've been asking for a very long time, to focus on our and our community's priorities. And I have to say, the way forward, it's all about partnership. It's working together. We want to build on our solid foundations of working with our business partners to make sure we do deliver from the private sector the growth that's actually going to pick up the jobs and ensure that we move forward as we want to, as we know we've got all the opportunity in central Bedfordshire and we want to make sure we capitalise on it, and particularly as a unitary authority we feel we have got that ability to do so in spite of the cut. So I think it is a challenge, but local government is moving into a very different arena now and it will be a very different situation.
Anne Glover, you've heard what the councillors are saying. This is the Conservative Council, obviously. Yeah. I mean, what is Unison's position going to be?
We're not anything like as confident that the private sector will be able to absorb the number of jobs. There doesn't seem to be enough opportunities for growth in the comprehensive spending review. It is a huge concern because obviously too few people, too little money out there on the high street. It's going to have a bad effect.
We're going to have to end it there, but thank you very much, Tricia Turner, Alex Plant and Anne Glover. Well, let's go back to our political correspondent, Andrew Sinclair, who's at Westminster. Andrew, we've heard there from our panel of guests.
Well, let's find out. Andrew Lansley is the Health Secretary. He's also Cambridgeshire MP. He was just listening to that discussion. Councils in our region over the last couple of weeks have already announced 2,000 job losses. This is nasty, this spending review, isn't it?
Well, nobody ever imagined that dealing with the legacy of debt we had from the Labour Party was going to be easy. It was always going to require difficult decisions. But what the public always told us was they wanted us to cut out waste, they wanted us to reduce the costs of welfare, and they wanted us to protect some of the key services like the NHS and schools. And that is indeed what we've done. But in addition, actually we've shown that we can ensure that we have investment still in infrastructure and in research and science, some of the things that are going to help us to build a more dynamic economy in the future.
And we were hearing just then concerns about social housing. This is bad if in 2010 people are worried about whether they're going to have a home to live in.
Well, actually we've had fewer homes built in this country in recent years than at any time since the war. So we're not in a position where the fact that there was money allocated for social housing was meaning houses were being built, they weren't being built. And at a place like Northstowe and at Cambourne actually, where you were just listening to people talking, that's precisely where actually developers will come in if they feel that there is the infrastructure in place to enable that to happen. That's why I'm so keen that we do get action on the A14 corridor to try and make that happen.
Well, we're not going to see any action in the immediate future. You must be very disappointed by what was announced today on the A14.
Of course I am, because actually, I know that it's very important. I've known that for 15 years. But actually I also know that these are difficult decisions. £1.4 billion project, there simply wasn't enough money available still to be able to do that. But we are going to work together. We are going to try and put together a public-private partnership to see whether we can find new solutions that deal with that, and we're going to try and make sure that we put more of the freight on rail as well.
Andrew Lansley, thank you very much. That's all from Westminster. Back to you, Susie.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, just to mention about Look East tomorrow night, Mike Liggins goes to Great Yarmouth to ask people in George Street what they think about George Osborne.
Yes.
Well, it's been a chilly old day today. Let's get the watch, Alex. A reminder of the day's main news. The